They never feared your mistakes. They feared your potential. That's the truth no one wanted you to discover. While you questioned yourself, they quietly studied every move you made, hoping you'd stay small, silent, and easy to control. But something changed. The version of you they thought they understood disappeared, and that terrified them more than anything. People don't try to erase what's harmless. They try to erase what threatens their comfort. So if you've ever wondered why they distanced themselves, betrayed you, or tried to break your spirit, stay until the end, because the answer is far darker and far more empowering than you ever imagined. Most people assume that if someone criticizes them, excludes them, or works against them, it must be because they have done something wrong. That belief keeps countless people trapped in self-doubt for years. They replay conversations, question every decision, and wonder if they somehow deserve the rejection. But there is another possibility that few people ever consider. Sometimes the strongest resistance you face has nothing to do with your flaws. Sometimes it begins because of something inside you that others cannot explain, control, or ignore. It begins when your presence reminds them of what they have abandoned within themselves. Potential has a strange effect on people. It is invisible, yet it can completely change the atmosphere of a room. You do not need to announce your dreams or prove your abilities for others to sense that you are capable of becoming something greater. Some people recognize it with admiration. Others recognize it with fear. The difference is not in you. The difference is in the way they see themselves. Those who are secure become inspired by your growth. Those who are insecure begin searching for ways to keep you from discovering how powerful you really are. Think about the moments when people underestimated you. They laughed at your ideas, questioned your choices, or acted as though your ambitions were unrealistic. On the surface, it looked like simple criticism. Beneath the surface, something much deeper was happening. Every step you took toward becoming better forced them to confront the distance between the life they wanted and the life they settled for. Instead of facing their own fears, it became easier to convince you that your dreams were impossible. That is why the strongest opposition often appears before the greatest transformation. The moment you begin changing your habits, protecting your peace, and refusing to settle for less, the reactions around you begin to shift. People who once ignored you suddenly become interested in your decisions. Those who never supported your journey suddenly become experts on why it will fail. Their words may sound logical, but their motivation is emotional. They are reacting to the possibility that you might succeed without their permission. There is something unsettling about a person who quietly improves every day. You are no longer distracted by unnecessary drama. You stop arguing with people determined to misunderstand you. You spend less time proving yourself and more time becoming yourself. That silent confidence is difficult for insecure people to tolerate because it cannot be manipulated. They cannot predict your next move, and they cannot define your worth for you anymore. Notice how people often become uncomfortable when you stop chasing validation. They were prepared to control someone desperate for approval. They were never prepared to deal with someone who finds confidence from within. The moment your happiness no longer depends on their opinions, their influence begins to disappear. That loss of control can trigger unexpected reactions. Some become distant, others become critical. A few may even try to rewrite your story so they appear justified in treating you poorly. This is why many extraordinary people experience rejection before recognition. At first, their vision seems foolish because no one else can see what they see. Their confidence is mistaken for arrogance. Their discipline is mistaken for obsession. Their silence is mistaken for weakness. Yet time has a way of revealing what opinions cannot. Results expose the difference between empty criticism and genuine purpose. Never confuse temporary rejection with permanent failure. The opinions surrounding you today are often based on who people think you are, not who you are becoming. They judge the current chapter without realizing they are reading only the beginning of the story. What they dismiss today may become the very quality they admire tomorrow. Ironically, many of the same voices that once doubted you may later claim they always believed in you. Your greatest mistake would be allowing someone else's fear to become your limitation. Every time you shrink yourself to make others comfortable, you delay the life you were meant to build. Every time you abandon your vision to satisfy someone else's expectations, you trade possibility for acceptance. That trade is never worth the cost because acceptance built on pretending is only another form of imprisonment. Real strength appears when you continue moving despite misunderstanding. You stop measuring your value by applause and start measuring it by your commitment. You understand that not everyone is supposed to understand your path. Some people are assigned to test your resolve rather than celebrate your progress. Their resistance becomes proof that your direction matters. Instead of asking why they wanted to hold you back, you begin asking a far more important question. How far can you go now that you no longer believe them? Control is rarely obvious. It does not always arrive through commands, threats, or loud confrontations. More often, it hides behind subtle expectations, carefully chosen words, and invisible rules that slowly convince you to doubt your own judgment. The people who wanted to keep you exactly where you were understood one important truth. As long as you questioned yourself, you would never fully discover what you were capable of becoming. That uncertainty was their greatest advantage because a person who constantly seeks permission is easier to influence than a person who trusts their own direction. The moment you begin growing, something unexpected happens. You stop reacting the way people expect you to. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision or defend every dream. You become more selective with your time, your energy, and your attention. To someone who benefited from your uncertainty, this change feels like a loss of control. They may not even realize why they are uncomfortable. They simply notice that the version of you they once understood is disappearing. Growth changes the balance of every relationship. The people who encouraged your progress from the beginning will celebrate your new confidence because they never depended on your limitations. But those who felt important only when you needed constant reassurance may struggle with the new version of you. Suddenly, their advice is no longer the center of your world. Their approval is no longer required before you take action. That shift can create frustration, even if they never admit it. Many people believe confidence is loud, but real confidence is surprisingly quiet. It is shown in the decisions you make without announcing them. It appears when you remain calm in situations that once controlled your emotions. It grows every time you choose discipline over distraction and purpose over popularity. Quiet confidence is difficult to manipulate because it is rooted in self-respect rather than external validation. Once you develop it, the opinions of others lose much of their power over your choices. This is often the point where criticism becomes more personal. Instead of challenging your ideas, people begin questioning your character. They call you distant because you protect your peace. They describe your focus as selfish because you no longer sacrifice your goals to satisfy everyone else. They accuse you of changing, as if remaining the same forever were a sign of loyalty. In reality, change is evidence of growth. The only people threatened by healthy change are those who benefited from your old habits. Think about how often successful people are misunderstood before they are respected. While they are building, others assume they are wasting time. While they are learning, others believe they are falling behind. While they are quietly preparing, people mistake their silence for weakness. Then the results begin to appear, and suddenly everyone acts surprised. What looked insignificant from the outside was actually years of consistent effort taking shape beneath the surface. One of the greatest shifts in your life happens when you stop trying to convince everyone to understand your vision. Not every dream requires unanimous approval. Not every goal needs to be explained. Sometimes the strongest move is continuing forward, without seeking validation from people who have already decided to doubt you. Your energy is limited. Every moment spent arguing with disbelief is a moment stolen from building the future you want. People who fear your growth often rely on prediction. They become comfortable because they think they know exactly how you will respond. They expect you to apologize when you have done nothing wrong. They expect you to abandon difficult goals after facing criticism. They expect you to settle for less because that is what you have always done before. When you break those patterns, you become unpredictable. That unpredictability challenges the image they created of you, and many people resist anything that forces them to rethink their assumptions. There is a powerful difference between being accepted and being respected. Acceptance sometimes requires fitting into expectations that limit your true potential. Respect is earned by living according to principles, even when those principles are unpopular. The journey toward genuine growth often means risking temporary misunderstanding in exchange for long-term authenticity. That choice is uncomfortable, but it is also necessary because no meaningful transformation happens without leaving an old version of yourself behind. The truth is that your growth was never the problem. It simply exposed the difference between those who genuinely wanted the best for you and those who only felt comfortable while you remained dependent on them. The stronger your character became, the harder it was for anyone to influence your direction with fear, guilt, or doubt. What they interpreted as rebellion was actually independence. What they called arrogance was often self-belief. What they resisted most was not your success itself, but the realization that you no longer needed anyone's permission to become the person you were always capable of being. The most effective attacks are rarely the ones you can see coming. They are not always loud, dramatic, or obvious. Instead, they unfold through small moments that seem harmless on their own but become powerful when repeated over time. A sarcastic comment disguised as a joke, a compliment followed by an unnecessary criticism, a moment when your achievements are ignored while your smallest mistakes are magnified. Individually, these moments appear insignificant. Together, they create an invisible pressure designed to make you question your own value. People who fear your potential understand that destroying confidence is often easier than competing with talent. They know that if they can convince you to doubt yourself, you will begin limiting your own possibilities without them having to do much at all. You become your own obstacle. Every opportunity feels too risky. Every dream seems unrealistic. Every step forward is interrupted by a voice that asks whether you are truly capable. What makes this strategy so dangerous is that after enough repetition, you begin believing those thoughts are your own. One of the oldest tactics used against determined people is isolation. Not always physical isolation, but emotional isolation. It begins when someone subtly encourages you to believe that no one understands your vision. They make you feel as though your goals are strange, your ambitions unrealistic, or your values outdated. Eventually, you begin wondering if pursuing your purpose is worth the loneliness that seems to come with it. That is exactly what they hope for. A person who abandons their purpose because they feel alone has defeated themselves without realizing someone else planted the doubt. Another common tactic is constant distraction. Not every distraction looks negative. Sometimes it appears as endless drama, unnecessary arguments, meaningless competition, or people demanding your attention at the exact moment you need to focus. They may not consciously intend to sabotage your progress, but the effect is the same. Every hour spent defending yourself is an hour stolen from building your future. Every emotional battle drains energy that could have been invested in your own growth. There is also the tactic of comparison. Instead of appreciating your own journey, you are encouraged to measure your progress against everyone else's timeline. Someone else gets promoted first. Someone else earns recognition sooner. Someone else appears more successful on the surface. Slowly, comparison replaces gratitude, and discouragement replaces determination. The tragedy is that comparison ignores the fact that every meaningful journey unfolds at its own pace. A seed planted today should never expect to look like a tree tomorrow. Perhaps the most manipulative strategy is convincing you that your kindness is weakness. When you choose patience, they call you passive. When you choose forgiveness, they call you naive. When you refuse unnecessary conflict, they assume you lack courage. Over time, they hope you will abandon your principles just to prove your strength. But true strength has never been measured by how loudly someone reacts. It is measured by how wisely they choose their battles. Self-control requires far more power than reckless aggression. Many people are also conditioned to seek approval before taking action. They wait for permission to chase a dream, change careers, start a business, or express an original idea. Those who benefit from controlling others understand this perfectly. They become gatekeepers of confidence, offering encouragement only when your goals align with their expectations. The moment your vision exceeds their comfort zone, their support disappears. Suddenly they become experts in why your plan will fail, not because they know your future, but because they fear what your success might reveal about their own inaction. One of the clearest signs that someone feels threatened by your growth is inconsistency. They celebrate you only when your success remains smaller than theirs. The moment your achievements begin attracting attention, their enthusiasm quietly fades. They become colder, more distant, or strangely critical. Nothing about your character has changed, only your results have. That reaction says far more about their internal struggles than it does about your worth. The most dangerous part of these hidden tactics is that they rarely leave visible evidence. No dramatic confrontation, no obvious betrayal. Just a gradual erosion of confidence that happens so slowly you hardly notice it. Days become months, and months become years. Dreams are postponed. Talents remain hidden. Potential stays locked behind invisible walls built from repeated doubt and quiet discouragement. The prison exists entirely in the mind, yet it feels just as real as any physical barrier. The moment you recognize these patterns, they begin losing their power. Awareness changes everything. You stop interpreting every criticism as truth. You stop chasing approval from people committed to misunderstanding you. You become more protective of your energy, your focus, and your peace. Instead of allowing outside voices to define your identity, you begin building that identity from your own values, discipline, and actions. The greatest victory is not proving your critics wrong. It is refusing to let their limitations become the boundaries of your own life. There comes a moment in every person's life when something shifts internally. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside. The world looks exactly the same. The same people speak the same words. The same challenges remain. Yet deep inside, a quiet decision is made that changes everything. It is the moment you stop waiting for permission to become who you were meant to be. It is the moment you stop measuring your worth by the opinions of people who never truly understood your journey. From that point forward, life begins moving in a completely different direction. For a long time, you may have believed that approval was necessary for progress. You wanted encouragement before taking risks. You hoped the people around you would recognize your potential before you recognized it yourself. You waited for validation that never came because you assumed support had to come from outside. But eventually, reality teaches a difficult lesson. Tiden aired. Verwolde is celebrate the person you are becoming because your growth forces them to confront the version of themselves they chose to abandon. That realization is painful at first. It feels like betrayal because you expected understanding from those closest to you. You imagined they would be the first to applaud your efforts, defend your dreams, and stand beside you during difficult seasons. Instead, some questioned your decisions. Others laughed at your ambitions. A few disappeared completely when you stopped living according to their expectations. At first, this rejection feels deeply personal. Over time, however, you begin to see it differently. Their reaction was never proof that you were on the wrong path. It was proof that your path no longer fit the story they had written for you. One of the greatest turning points in personal growth is learning the difference between acceptance and authenticity. Many people sacrifice who they truly are because they fear being misunderstood. They adjust their personality to avoid conflict. They silence their ideas to avoid criticism. They settle for lives that feel comfortable to others but empty to themselves. For a while, this may create temporary peace. But eventually, pretending becomes exhausting. Every day spent living for someone else's approval creates distance between you and your true identity. The moment you decide to stop chasing validation, something remarkable happens. Your energy begins returning to you. Instead of wasting hours explaining your choices, you invest those hours improving yourself. Instead of defending every dream, you quietly work toward making it a reality. Instead of reacting to every opinion, you become focused on your own standards. That shift may seem small, but it transforms every area of your life because your attention is no longer controlled by external noise. People often become uncomfortable when they realize they can no longer influence your decisions through guilt, criticism, or fear. They notice that their words no longer produce the same emotional reaction. The arguments that once distracted you no longer capture your attention. The doubts they planted no longer take root because your confidence is growing from experience rather than approval. To them, it feels as though you have changed overnight. In truth, you have simply stopped abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. This stage requires courage because independence often feels lonely before it feels empowering. There will be moments when you question your decision. You may wonder whether maintaining your boundaries is worth the distance it creates. You may miss the familiarity of seeking reassurance, even if that reassurance came with conditions. But every step away from dependence is a step toward freedom. Every decision made from conviction rather than fear strengthens the person you are becoming. There is also a quiet confidence that develops when you stop announcing every move. You realize that not every goal needs public approval. Not every dream requires an audience. Some victories are built in silence long before they are seen by the world. While others spend their energy talking about what they plan to do, you become committed to the process itself. Discipline replaces the need for applause. Consistency becomes more satisfying than temporary recognition. Ironically, the same people who questioned your choices may begin changing their attitude once they see undeniable results. Suddenly, they become curious about the habits they once criticized. They admire the confidence they once called arrogance. They respect the determination they once described as unrealistic. Success has a way of changing conversations, but by then, something inside you has changed as well. Their approval no longer carries the weight it once did because you have already learned to believe in yourself without it. The greatest transformation does not happen when the world finally recognizes your value. It happens much earlier, in the quiet moment when you decide that your purpose is too important to be delayed by someone else's opinion. That decision becomes the foundation for every opportunity that follows. From that day forward, you no longer live to satisfy expectations that were never yours to carry. You walk with greater clarity, stronger conviction, and a deeper understanding that your future belongs to the person you choose to become, not to the voices that once tried to define your limits. There is an unexpected truth about adversity that most people never fully understand. The experiences meant to weaken you often become the very experiences that shape your greatest strengths. Pain has a way of revealing abilities that comfort never could. The moments when people doubted you, ignored your efforts, or tried to convince you that you would never succeed were never just obstacles. They became training grounds. Every challenge demanded that you grow beyond the version of yourself that existed before. Without realizing it, the pressure that was supposed to break you was quietly building the resilience that would one day make you unstoppable. Think about how people react when they believe they have successfully discouraged someone. They expect defeat to be permanent. They assume disappointment will lead to surrender. They convince themselves that a few harsh words, repeated criticism, or silent rejection will be enough to make you abandon your purpose. What they fail to understand is that determination often grows strongest in difficult seasons. Every setback forces you to develop patience. Every disappointment teaches adaptability. Every closed door challenges you to create a new path instead of waiting for someone else to open one. The strongest individuals are rarely those who experience the easiest journeys. They are often the people who learned to keep moving despite uncertainty. They became familiar with rejection, but they refused to let rejection define their identity. They experienced failure, but they viewed it as information instead of a final verdict. They encountered betrayal, yet they chose wisdom over bitterness. That choice made all the difference because bitterness keeps people trapped in the past, while wisdom transforms painful experiences into valuable lessons. One of the greatest advantages you can develop is emotional discipline. When others expect you to react with anger, you respond with clarity. When they expect revenge, you choose progress. When they hope to distract you with unnecessary conflict, you remain focused on your long-term vision. Emotional discipline is not about pretending pain does not exist. It is about refusing to let temporary emotions control permanent decisions. That ability separates people who merely survive difficult circumstances from those who use those circumstances as fuel for extraordinary growth. There will always be individuals who mistake your silence for weakness. They believe that because you refuse to engage in every argument, you lack confidence. In reality, silence often reflects strength. It shows that you understand the value of your energy. Every unnecessary conflict costs time, attention, and peace of mind. Instead of spending those resources proving yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you invest them in becoming better. Improvement is far more powerful than endless explanation. It is also important to recognize that success changes the meaning of past struggles. The same experiences that once felt unfair begin to make sense from a different perspective. You realize that without those moments of disappointment, you would never have developed the patience needed for greater opportunities. Without criticism, you might never have strengthened your confidence. Without rejection, you might never have discovered environments where your abilities could truly flourish. What once appeared to be an obstacle gradually reveals itself as preparation. Many people underestimate the quiet power of consistency. They search for dramatic breakthroughs while ignoring the small decisions that shape every meaningful achievement. Waking up with discipline when motivation disappears. Continuing to learn when progress feels slow. Choosing integrity even when dishonesty seems easier. These ordinary choices accumulate over time, creating extraordinary results. Those who try to discourage you rarely notice these daily victories because they are looking for immediate outcomes. Meanwhile, your future is being built one disciplined action at a time. Another powerful transformation occurs when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances. Victimhood focuses entirely on what happened to you. Growth focuses on what you choose to do next. You cannot control every event that enters your life, but you can always influence your response. That response becomes your greatest source of power. It shifts your attention away from blame and toward responsibility. Responsibility is not about accepting fault for everything that happened. It is about recognizing your ability to shape what happens from this moment forward. Ironically, those who once hoped you would remain stuck may eventually become witnesses to your progress. They expected your confidence to disappear under pressure. Instead, it became stronger. They expected your dreams to fade after repeated disappointment. Instead, those dreams became clearer. They believed your setbacks would define your future. Instead, those setbacks became stories of perseverance that inspired others. Time has a remarkable way of exposing the difference between temporary struggle and permanent defeat. One day you may look back at the seasons that once caused you the greatest pain and realize they carried hidden gifts. They forced you to develop courage when fear seemed overwhelming. They taught you self-respect when approval was unavailable. They revealed who genuinely supported your journey and who only appreciated the version of you that remained easy to control. Most importantly, they proved that no amount of doubt from others could permanently stop someone who refuses to surrender their purpose. The strength you carry today was not created in moments of comfort, but forged through every challenge that tried and ultimately failed to convince you to give up. There comes a point when the greatest response is no longer explaining yourself, defending your decisions, or trying to convince people they misunderstood you. The greatest response becomes the life you build. Success has a unique language that requires no argument. It speaks through consistency, discipline, and quiet confidence. While others remain focused on discussing your potential, you become focused on proving it through action. That shift changes everything because actions create evidence that opinions can no longer erase. Many people spend years trying to win battles that were never meant to be fought. They chase approval from those determined to withhold it. They waste energy correcting every false assumption and responding to every criticism. The problem with this approach is that some people are not searching for truth. They are searching for confirmation of what they already believe. No explanation will satisfy someone who has decided not to understand you. Real freedom begins the moment you stop participating in conversations designed to keep you distracted from your purpose. Your greatest advantage is time. Every day offers another opportunity to improve your skills, strengthen your character, and move one step closer to the future you envision. While critics remain occupied analyzing your every move, you continue building. They measure success by temporary appearances. You measure it by lasting progress. Over weeks, months, and years, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. Small improvements accumulate into extraordinary transformation, even if no one notices the process while it is happening. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to separate your identity from other people's opinions. Praise can be encouraging, but it should never become the foundation of your confidence. Criticism can be useful, but it should never become the definition of your worth. Both are temporary. Character is permanent. When your identity is rooted in your values instead of public opinion, you become emotionally stable regardless of external circumstances. Success no longer makes you arrogant, and setbacks no longer make you feel worthless. There is something deeply inspiring about a person who remains focused despite misunderstanding. Such individuals understand that recognition often arrives long after the work has been completed. They do not allow delayed results to weaken their commitment. Instead, they trust the process. They recognize that every disciplined decision is an investment in a future that cannot yet be seen. Like a tree developing its roots before its branches become visible, true growth often happens beneath the surface long before anyone else notices. People who once underestimated you may eventually begin asking questions they never thought to ask before. They will wonder how your confidence became so strong. They will notice your calmness during situations that once overwhelmed you. They will see opportunities appearing in your life that seemed impossible years earlier. What they may never fully understand is that these visible successes are simply the result of invisible habits practiced consistently over time. The victories they admire today were built during seasons when almost no one believed in you. Forgiveness also becomes an important part of moving forward. Not because those who hurt you necessarily deserve another chance, but because carrying resentment gives the past too much control over your future. Every moment spent replaying old betrayals is a moment taken away from creating new possibilities. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened or pretending the pain was insignificant. It is choosing not to allow those experiences to define the direction of your life. It frees your attention to focus on where you are going, rather than where you have been. As your journey continues, you begin recognizing that every experience served a purpose. The criticism strengthened your confidence. The rejection refined your priorities. The disappointment taught patience. The loneliness revealed your resilience. None of these lessons felt valuable while you were living through them, yet together they formed the foundation of a stronger character. You become someone who no longer fears temporary setbacks because you have already discovered that adversity often carries hidden opportunities. There is also a quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you remain true to your principles. You refuse to become bitter despite unfair treatment. You chose integrity even when shortcuts seemed tempting. You remained committed to your goals without allowing hatred to consume your heart. That kind of victory cannot be measured by money, status, or public recognition. It is measured by the peace that comes from knowing your success was built honestly and your character remained intact through every challenge. Eventually, the noise surrounding your life begins to fade. The voices that once predicted your failure grow quieter because reality has replaced speculation. The people who once overlooked your potential can no longer deny the results standing before them. Yet by this stage, something remarkable has happened. Their opinions no longer carry the same weight they once did. You have grown beyond the need for constant validation because your confidence is now rooted in experience, discipline, and self-respect. You understand that the greatest victory was never making your critics admit they were wrong. It was becoming the person they never believed you could become, while remaining faithful to your values, your purpose, and your commitment to keep moving forward regardless of who chose to stand in your way.